It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me, well, this is the second of kind of a three-part series I've had with the Maryland Department of Veterans Affairs. Phil Munley is their Director of Service Program, and Mark Hendricks is the Trust Fund Administrator. This again for the Maryland Department of Veterans Affairs. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today.
Donna, thanks for having us.
Yeah, great to be here.
And thank you for doing what you do. As a veteran, it's kind of important to me and all of us.
Well, as a veteran, I agree with you. It's very good work for somebody like me who believes in what we're doing.
Cool. Very good.
Thank you for having us, because it's always good to be able to let people know what exactly it is that we do.
Okay, and speaking of which, Mark, Trust Fund Administrator, which doesn't mean much as you just read that. It sounds like a big title.
Right. But it's a lot easier than it sounds. But the Trust Fund's actually a really cool program that the state started. The state, I think it was in 2009, created through legislation a fund to be a charity, essentially, that the state would maintain, and that will allow the department to raise donations, and then those donations would then be in turn make grants to needy veterans across the entire state, whether it's Garrett County, St. Mary's.
We're here in Anne Arundel. Or
Anne Arundel, any
Queen
county,
Anne's,
if it's a Maryland county. And most of what we do, I'd say 99.9% of what we do is, like rent, mortgage, utilities type things. So like, for example, and this is what really happened to a veteran, she lost her job. She was out of work for quite a few months. And luckily she found good employment again, though it took some time. So she was behind on her mortgage by 2 months. So with this trust fund, what we look at is we call it temporary financial problems.
It's not income dependent, like you can't have earned, if you earn $100,000 a year and then...
Well, we go by 200% of the federal poverty guidelines, and that goes by, household size. So yeah, if you're making $100,000 a year at that moment, you couldn't apply to the trust fund. So, well, with this veteran, she did have a good job, but she lost it. So she wasn't having any income coming in for a couple months. So she eventually became behind on her mortgage, and she applied for the trust fund because she actually got another good job, but she hadn't started yet, and there was no way she could make 2-month payment at one time. And so she applied to the trust fund. Our application review committee, who make all the decisions, they looked at her situation, realized that she was in something that we would call temporary, and they approved her. So we saved her home from foreclosure.
That's amazing.
And so we do mostly rent and utilities.
It's one time.
It's a one-time thing.
If a veteran goes in for it once, that's it.
That's it. There's no repeats. Once you've been helped once, that's it. And the reason, the whole point of the trust fund and being a temporary financial assistance program is that we're trying to get people to the path of self-sufficiency. And in 2013, we realized to really take advantage of trying to raise money, it was really difficult being a state agency and trying to raise money. So legislation was passed to allow the trust fund to apply for nonprofit status.
That's amazing, because state agencies cannot ask for money.
Right.
So you have within the state agency a nonprofit.
It is a nonprofit, is overseen by a board of trustees. So it's umbilically connected to the state, but it is a separate entity.
I'm sorry, the light bulb just went off, and I'm thinking, because I'm a dog lover and I know you're a wildlife lover, the police departments all across the state of Maryland have trouble getting supplies for themselves and for their canines. So suddenly that light bulb just went off.
Here's an interesting thing too, is after the trust fund became a nonprofit, the state of Delaware called, and they were interested in starting their own trust fund. So they started a Delaware trust fund. In fact, they took our application for assistance and just took out, I gave them the original document, they took out Maryland and just put in Delaware. And what they did, they realized, like, how are you guys raising money? I was like, well, we had to become a nonprofit through legislation. They didn't want to go through all that bureaucratic red tape, so they started the Friends of the Delaware Trust Fund nonprofit, and then those donations are funneled into their trust fund.
Was this your thought process?
No, this was before.
Owings
This was Secretary Atkins in 2009. So this was before my time, but since Secretary Owings has come in, we've grown it quite a bit. I mean, last state fiscal year was our biggest year yet. We made $80,000 in grants to needy veterans across the entire state.
And it's not just
growing
grants.
Every year.
You're literally going out to corporations and individuals and saying...
Yeah, now there was legislation that passed. It's very exciting. In October, all the casinos now in the state, right now it's just one, but all the casinos will have a donation bucket. So if anyone has like the odd change, they can donate those chips to a bucket, and then the state casinos will funnel that into the trust fund. So that's a way to raise money and get donations that way.
The times they are changing. I remember, first of all, we used to figure that the government, federal, state, local, had enough money to do everything they needed to do, and we would be fine living in this blissful, lovely, perfect world with roads that had no issues.
The utopia.
Right, exactly. Right. It doesn't work that way.
No, not at all.
Yeah. And our veterans need help.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's so good to have those type of donations. And the one thing a lot of people don't realize with the trust fund is right now I am the only staff member, even though we have a board of trustees who govern the trust fund in terms of vetting the applicants and reviewing the applications to get them to the review committee that make the decision. That's all me. So I meet with all the applicants and make sure, it's with any type of financial program, you're going to get those, you're going to get people that occasionally will lie. Most of our applicants do not do that.
And how long? All of these people are in some form of dire straits and need this immediately? How long does the process take?
Because I am a one-man show and do the amount of applications that we have, we always tell applicants we are not an emergency program. So we try to go as fast as possible. But on average, I say it takes about 3 weeks.
That's still not bad.
Sometimes 3 to 4. But usually I'll say a month just to play it safe, because once an application comes in, not only do I have to review it, I have to get in contact with the veteran, vet them. Usually we have a face-to-face meeting.
Let's hold that thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's take a short break. When we come back, more about what the veteran needs to bring to you, other than, I guess, the bills.
Right, yeah.
This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. This show is the second of what has now become a three-part series focusing on the Maryland Department of Veterans Affairs. And Phil Munley, director of the service program, and Mark Hendricks, trust fund administrator, are telling us all about what they do. We were talking to Mark about how the trust fund works. It's a nonprofit within a state agency that has been created to help veterans out of a one-time need for money for housing, car, some critical utility. Yeah. And Phil, tell the story you just shared.
Well, we had a Vietnam vet, present to our office. Now, of course, I run the service program, so we help vets obtain benefits from the federal VA. So he presented to our office. He was a cab driver in Baltimore City who happened to be 70% service-connected for post-traumatic stress disorder, but he was the recipient of a Silver Star from his service in Vietnam. I got to read the citation. This veteran charged a machine gun nest in Vietnam to save some of his buddies in his outfit. So he had been driving a cab in Baltimore City to make ends meet, and business was bad. It was in the middle of the winter. So his utilities, he was here as a Silver Star recipient from Vietnam, sitting in his apartment with no utilities. Amazing. So we applied to get him to apply to the trust fund to get him a grant so we could turn his utilities back on. At the same time, we were able then to get his benefits raised from the 70 to the 100% rate. So his income then went up to $3,000 a month. But these are the type of honorable individuals that we're helping.
What's so interesting to me is when I had Secretary Owings and your director of outreach here, it was alluded that these programs exist, but it's really difficult reaching people so that they know about it. And in case our listeners wanted to know why I'm doing what I'm doing, this is exactly why. The cab driver in Baltimore City, is exactly why I'm doing this series on Veterans Affairs.
And Phil and I, we work very closely together. So when I have a trust, like Phil referred that applicant to me, and then I will get applicants who will tell me that they would like to get a claim into the VA and they don't know the first thing about it. So then I send them to Phil. So we do a lot of one-stop shop type thing. So we work really closely together within the department.
And what's interesting, you don't see this a lot in bureaucracies where you are so close together. And, well, the fact that you're doing what you're doing with actually fundraising and the grants and all,
And I think it's the blessing and the curse of being a small agency. We're one of the smallest agencies in state government, so our constituency base is pretty big. But what's good about it is that we're small enough that we know each other, and Phil and I can work. So, every day we are working with a lot of the same clientele.
Right. Okay. Let's finish up with what trust fund. What do people need to bring to you?
Okay. So there's the application itself that I always make sure to get out to when an applicant either emails or calls me. But to make it a complete application, they have to include their DD-214 to verify their discharge. They have to include the bills they're looking for assistance with, because any applicant that is approved for a grant with the trust fund, we cut the check, but it goes to the energy provider, the mortgage provider,
Right.
the landlord. It never goes to the veteran themselves. And then they also have to include 3 months of bank statements. And the reason we do that is we do have to verify how they're spending the money they do have, make sure their claims are legit. Basically, it's just to verify claims.
How many veterans do you help a year, roughly?
Every year it's different, but every year it grows as well. And I don't know how many it was this year, but I think it was around 40-some veterans, between 30 and 40, but total was over 80,000 in grants this past year. It was our biggest year yet.
And how
it's
much
all,
money did you
donated
bring?
money.
How much money did you bring in?
Well, right now, this was the first year we have the casinos and the state lotteries also. We get a quarterly a donation from them. So each year it grows, but that's definitely helped with in terms of taking a lot of pressure off me and being a one-man show doing the applicant work and the fundraising. With that, I think last year we brought in around between $60,000 and $70,000.
And the extra 20 that went out, was that left over from years before?
Years before, yeah,
Okay.
the previous year.
All right, very good. So you still need help. If people do want to help, if people are listening and say, "Hey, I want to donate," is there actually a way of doing this?
Yeah, they can either email me. My email address is really simple. It's mark.hendricks, HENDRICKS @maryland.gov, and that's the easiest way. Just send me a quick email and I can get in touch with them
All
right away.
Perfect. And the website for Maryland Veterans Affairs is
veterans.maryland. Again, Maryland spelled out completely, but it's veterans.maryland.gov.
perfect. All right. So, Phil, you've been quiet. Time to turn the mic on to you.
Good.
Director of Service Program. Service?
Right. What I do is I run a network of 12 offices statewide where I have what we call benefit specialists that are there that will meet with the veteran or their dependent or their survivor one-on-one, review their military separation discharge documents, their DD-214s. We handle all generations from World War II to the current time, and the DD-214 didn't actually come into existence until 1951. So
By the way, there is a group of veterans that couldn't get those and still can't get those. Is that correct? Well,
No,
my dad was one that some of his records burned down.
Right. There was a fire in St. Louis. That's where the archives is at, in St. Louis. So, and they're maintained there. So the fire was in 1974. Literally, if you look at this, it's a warehouse, football fields long. Back then, they didn't believe in the sprinkler systems because they thought the moisture would deteriorate the documents.
And pre-computer.
Exactly.
Right.
So now, literally after the fire, they set up a tent city where they're walking throughout the town, bringing back charred remains of documents and trying to re-archive them. So they will create a document to send out to folks if their records were destroyed in that fire. There's a lot of detailed questions they ask, but they do the best they can with sending out a certificate of military service for those that were destroyed in the fire.
Okay.
So that's what my folks do. They're in 12 locations throughout the state, and they'll meet with that dependent, that veteran, that survivor, and then we'll help them access the benefit that they've earned through military service.
Okay, hold that thought. We're going to take another break, and we're going to come back and talk about what some of those benefits might be and where the offices are that vets can go to. This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. Phil Munley, Director of the Service Program for the Maryland Department of Veterans Affairs, and Mark Hendricks is the Trust Fund Administrator. We're talking to Phil about the service program. You have several offices across the state.
Correct.
Closest to Annapolis.
Annapolis is Baltimore, more than likely.
Okay.
We just grew. We opened up in Howard County recently. The next place, should we be awarded another position, we're coming to Anne Arundel County. We're like any other state agency, fighting budgets all the time. If I get another position, and hopefully we will, we come to Anne Arundel County.
That'd be great. If you're in Queen Anne's County, also Baltimore, I'm guessing, unless there's one.
Yeah, we're 12 locations throughout the state. Okay, so we're in Baltimore, have office in Bel Air and Camp Springs down in Prince George County. Carroll County has an office. Carroll County pays for their own office. They work through us, but they're paid for by the county.
Oh, that's cool.
Down in Charlotte Hall, the State Veteran Home, we have an office within the VA clinic. We're out in far western Maryland and Cumberland. Eastern Shore, we have 2 locations. We have Easton and Salisbury.
Okay, so for those listening in Queen Anne's County, Easton's the place to go.
Right, and we have Frederick, Hagerstown, mentioned Howard County, we just opened there, and in Rockville.
All right, very good. So the the county that pays for the office themselves. If you don't get budget funds to come to an Anne Arundel County area to service all these vets that we have here, that is something that, I mean, if Anne Arundel County won the lottery.
Yeah, I mean, I worked with the Carroll County Board of Commissioners when I first arrived here. I come from California. I retired from the Navy out there, and California is a little bit bigger than Maryland,
Right.
and so they break benefits down into to what they call county veteran services. So I kind of just talking about that at one of the Carroll County meetings, and they didn't have a service officer in Carroll County. There's only 13,000 vets in Carroll County. Not that that's a small number. I mean, it's 13,000 people,
Right.
not to mention dependents and survivors. So they took it on board that, hey, if I would train them and they could work through us, they would hire them and pay for them.
I will make sure this show gets to our county executive.
Yeah, so that's what happened, and it's a program that's working great.
Super. Okay, so some of the programs that are available through, the veterans are coming to you for benefits. Is there not a direct route if you're leaving the military under normal circumstances, not with a medical discharge? Do you not ever meet with a VA rep?
No, that's changed a lot in recent years. They have separation briefs, TAP classes now, where they actually run you through a separation briefings. But honestly, most veterans that are leaving the service are thinking about one thing.
Out.
I'm going home. Right. I want out. I want to go home.
I don't want any delays. I don't want to meet this person.
Right. I don't want to listen to this noise. I just want to go.
And what very few realize is if you have something that started in the during your time in the military or progressed,
right,
medical related issue.
Right. If you have an injury or an illness or a disease, it's absolutely in your best interest. You want to file a claim to the VA, and you want to establish service connection for that condition. And there's really two main reasons why you want to do that. If you have a condition that's related to your military service, number one, the VA will then treat you for that condition at no charge for the rest of your life.
Right.
Healthcare in our country is kind of in a little bit of a flux here. So the treatment at VA, no cost, rest of your life. The second thing, there could be a monetary benefit. So as vets move along in years, things get a little more difficult. That monetary benefit can really make the difference in their lives. So it's a pretty significant thing. VA does a great job. We've heard all the stories about the backlogs of claims, and they've done a great job on that recently. All the stories you've heard, a year, 2 years to get claims through, those numbers are down. I mean, they're way down. 6 months, and those people that took that long generally kind of go at it on their own. They're unrepresented.
Yeah.
They're like a client going to court without a lawyer. So when you're going to the VA, you want to have an advocate, somebody on your side that understands the process, that understands the system.
For those that did leave the military and got a small percentage rating, 0, 10%, whatever it is, can that be looked at again?
Absolutely.
And should it be?
Age, absolutely. As we age, things tend to deteriorate. So, maybe you were 10% for a knee or a shoulder, or as you move along in years and that deteriorates, then we can have those percentages increased. Or if one condition causes a second condition, one is secondary to another, we can establish a new claim for the secondary condition.
Yes. I hope you're listening, because that could be an additional amount of money that could help you in your daily life.
One of the most common claims we file for folks is for hearing loss. Many folks don't realize that, being in the military can be inherently noisy. You're on board ship, you're in a fire room, fan room, boiler room, you're on a flight line, noise, you're an infantry guy, artillery.
Not a radio room.
Yeah, well, even a radio room.
If I was a radio man.
Yeah, but that ringing in your ears, if all that stuff started while you're in the military, people don't even think about that because it just becomes a part of who they are.
Right.
We can help them file a claim for that. And we're pretty successful with those. Not everybody gets it. But as you move along in years, hearing aids are a big, big thing out there.
Yeah.
They're very expensive. Remember, VA will treat you, so then the VA will provide those hearing aids for you at no cost.
All right.
Some of our elderly people, that can be a big, significant thing.
Fair enough. Gentlemen, thank you both for doing what you do. And Phil, thank you for your service also. This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will see you next week.